In this video, we will discuss probability of simple events. You may recall that probability is the likelihood of something occurring. A probability can be written as a fraction, a decimal, or a percent. The probability of any event is the number of favorable outcomes over the number of total possible outcomes. All probabilities exist on a scale from 0 to 1, or from 0% to 100%. Anything that is 0% likely to happen is impossible. It will not happen. Anything that is 100% likely to happen is certain. It will definitely happen. Anything less than 50% likelihood is considered unlikely. For example, rolling a die and landing on a 5. There is 1 5 on the die out of 6 sides on a die. That is less than half, but more than 0. So that is unlikely. Another example of something that is unlikely to happen is if you spin a spinner, and there's 4 equal sections, your chance of landing on any one section is 1 out of 4, or 25%. Anything that is greater than 50% likely to happen is likely. For example, the probability of rolling a die and landing on any number that is greater than 1. There are 6 sides on a die, and there are 5 numbers that are greater than 1 out of 6. That is greater than 50%, but not quite 100%. That is likely to happen. Anything that is 50% likely to happen is what we call as likely to happen as not, or equally likely. For example, flipping a coin and landing on heads or tails is 50% likely. Let's take a look at an example of how we can calculate a probability. From a standard deck of cards, a card is selected. What is the probability that you would choose a hearts card from the deck of cards? If you're not a card player, you may not be familiar with this, but there are 52 cards in a deck, and there are 4 suits. There's hearts, diamonds, spades, and clubs. Each suit has the same number of cards. If you split 52 evenly amongst 4 suits, that's 13 of each card, ace through king. So there are 13 hearts in the deck out of 52, which simplifies to 1/4 of the deck, or 25%. The likelihood of this occurring, since it is less than 50% but not 0, is unlikely. Now let's try a couple examples on our own. First, find the probability of each of these and then determine if it is impossible, unlikely, equally likely, likely, or certain. This first one, the probability of spinning the spinner and landing on a 6 is a 1 out of 8 chance, which is unlikely because it's less than half. The second example, the probability of spinning and landing on a multiple of 2 is 4 out of 8, or 1/2, which is equally likely. Multiples of 2 are 2, 4, 6, and 8. The sample space is the set of all possible outcomes in an event. For example, if we're flipping a coin, the sample space is either heads or tails. Here's a few other examples. The sample space of this bag of marbles would be 1 yellow marble, 2 red marbles, 3 blue marbles, and 4 green marbles. Just listing all of the possible outcomes. And for this spinner, the results are 1 through 8. Lastly, we can discuss the complement of an event. A complement is any outcome that is not in the event itself. More easily described as the opposite of the event. Here's an example. Let's say you roll a number cube or a die. The probability of you landing on a 5 is 1 out of 6 chance, since there is 1 5 on the die and 6 total sides on that die. The complement of that event is the likelihood of you rolling the die and not landing on the number 5. In other words, what's the likelihood of you landing on anything else but a 5? And that would be 5 out of 6. If you look at the original event and its complement together, you should notice that 1 out of 6 and 5 out of 6 combine to represent all 6 out of 6 possibilities. So it is important to note that an event and its complement should add up to one whole or 100% because together they should represent all possible outcomes. Using this bag of marbles, find the probability that you would select a marble that is not green. There are 10 total marbles in this bag, 4 of which are green, so the likelihood of you picking something that is not green is 6 out of 10, or 3 out of 5. 3 out of 5 is more than half, so that is likely that we would pick something that is not green. Using this chart, answer the following question. Danielle randomly selects a chip from the bag. Which is true? D is the correct answer here. If you add up all of the total possible number of chips in the bag, you get 20. The probability of selecting a red chip is 3 out of 20. That is certainly not 1/4. The probability of selecting a yellow chip is likely is also not true because 8 out of 20 is less than half. The probability of selecting a green chip is 5 out of 20, which is actually 1/4, not 1/5, and so D is the only possible option there, that blue or red is less likely than selecting yellow. For our final question, I'd like for you to try, if you roll a die 30 times, how many times could you expect to land on the number 2? The correct answer here is 5 times. There's a few ways that you could explain this. So to land on a 2 on the die, that's a 1 out of 6 chance. You could use a proportion here to say 1 out of every 6 times I should land on a 2, so how many would that be out of 30? If you solve that, you would get x equals 5. If you recognize that there are 6 sides on a die and you only have a 1 out of 6 chance of landing on a 2, you could also simply divide 30 divided by 6, because those are both the total possible outcomes, total possible rolls, total possible outcomes. Our answer there is also 5. One final note I wanted to mention, for all probabilities, you will see them written in this way. Capital P with inside the parentheses the event that it's asking for you to calculate the probability. So it'll say P, and then in parentheses it might say heads for flipping a heads on a coin. Or it might ask something else. But this is just a short notation rather than writing out find the probability of flipping a heads. We write it like this, P and then heads in parentheses, and then we would write our answer as 1/2 or 50% or even 0.5.